What is your context?
I am going to speak to my church's worship planning committee, which is the teaching and preaching pastors as well as actual worship leadership. We live in a world where truth is increasingly known as relative. Not allowed to make absolute statements anymore. You can call that a result of postmodern philosophy or someone pushing the conservative or the liberal agenda, or however you want to style it. But the truth is, there is no truth in our current world. Our culture has turned against anything that might be seen as absolutist or extreme. So that tends to isolate the church. As we begin to plan worship and put together all the different components of how we're going to present the gospel to the congregation, we're going to be making some absolutist claims. We're going to say that when Jesus said that I am the way, the truth, and the life, that he meant it. We're going to make assertions about us being the only true way to know a loving God. And the temptation in all of this is to sit back and go, well, the world doesn't want to hear this, so let's repackage it in a way to where we're going to compromise what we believe, but we're going to reach more people. Eugene Peterson says, when the church reduces its preaching and teaching to punchy slogans and cliches, it abandons the richly nuanced intricacies that bring all the parts of our lives into a supple and grace-filled wholeness. So when we decide to abandon and compromise the basic tenets of the gospel that we need to present to our people, and we decide to trade that in instead for more showmanship or performance or things that might be more pop culture oriented in a way that still detracts from the gospel, we stop being the church. We stop being a people who were called to present this, that were called out from a world to take a message to a world. This is not to say that contextualization itself is bad. We still have to present the gospel in a way that reaches people where they're at. We still have to do it in a way that shows love and grace and mercy and hope and everything that Christ stood for. But at the same time, we still have to be true to who we are too, and true to our heritage and our legacy as Christians. Part of our legacy is, again, a separate community. A community that's been called out from the world to be almost its own world in ministry to the larger context. Christ, when he was on trial to Pilate, says in John, says, "My kingdom is not of this world. My kingdom is not of this realm." The author of Hebrews writes that all of these, of our great cloud of witnesses, died in the faith without receiving the promises, but having seen them and having welcomed them from a distance, and having confessed that they were strangers and exiles on the earth. For those who say such things make it clear that they are seeking a country of their own. And finally, the Apostle Peter says, "But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for God's own possession, so that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who has called you out of darkness into his marvelous light." And a few verses later, Peter also says that we're aliens and strangers in this world. Or if you prefer the King James language, we're sojourners. We're on a journey somewhere else, that this is not the final destination. And we're pilgrims in that sense. And so when we decide to have a layover on earth and just stay here, acclimate ourselves and let that become who we really are, we've lost the historic Christian faith. When we compromise on that historicity, we're becoming something else, something new. And newness isn't always a good thing. Sometimes it certainly is, because again, you have to stay up on the new parts of life in order to reach a new people. I will not quite shamefacedly admit that part of my own attempts in this have been listening to pop music lately. And I will confess that Lady Gaga is not easy listening music when you're writing term papers. But when I hear people talking about this, I want to get in on the conversation. And so for me to be missional and incarnational, I do have to step into their world. But that doesn't mean I have to compromise my own to do it. I don't have to agree with everything that she's singing about in order to talk about what she's singing about. Some of you may know that I was an English literature major, and my undergrad thesis was on Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. I once got in trouble in an interview once saying that this would be the one book I would take with me on an island. I said this during a scholarship interview for seminary, during which the appropriate answer would have been the Bible, or perhaps somebody's commentary. And I said, no, I will take this piece of secular literature with me, and I will love it, and it shall be my guide. And I got many strange looks. If you're not familiar with this, Huxley is setting up a dystopian world, a negative utopia. Everything that should be good is still considered good, but it's brought about in sinister, insidious ways. And so we have, in this book, an inversion of religion given over to science and technology. I see parallels in that in our world today, where we've made almost a god out of science or progress and innovation. And so instead of having more Billy Grahams, we have more Steve Jobs as the ultimate in who Americans should be. And so in this book, at least, we replaced God with Henry Ford, of all people, because the assembly line is the true sign of progress and technology. And so inverting religion, Huxley changes the year of our Lord to the year of our Ford. We live in the year AF. All crosses had the tops cut off to become the Model T symbol. Mm-hmm. And you know that all is right in the world because Ford's in his flivver. Finally, Huxley also introduces this notion of soma, which is a very potent drug, somewhat hallucinogenic, somewhat narcotic. And you can just continuously take this as long as you want to and just be on a trip, on a high, for as long as you like until you inevitably have to come crashing down. And you can almost see, in a way, that it subverts what religion stands for. Now, Huxley even says of soma, he says that anybody can be virtuous now. You can carry at least half your morality about in a bottle. Christianity without tears, that's what soma is. And our world today doesn't want suffering. It doesn't want to be told that it can't have the high all the time. It doesn't want to hear that there's suffering involved, or pain, or hardship, or that it has to make a stand for something. But we have to. That is the church's job. We are to make a stand against a culture of sex and drugs and violence and everything else that's in contrast to what we stand for. And we have to present that gospel out of love to this world. Rob Bell, as controversial as he is, once put it very beautifully when he said that the job of the church is to charge into hell and bring heaven with it. Peterson himself says that God is on the salvation march through the country of the dead and the damned, taking captives on the way. This is the truth of the gospel. And all its goriness of the cross and all of its sacrifice and hardship and pain and martyrdom, the gospel is still one of freedom from sin. Freedom from a world that doesn't want to accept absolute statements. That wants to be lost and comfortable where it is. And so as we plan worship, we have to get across, we are still Christians. This is the same faith that we've always had, making the same claims we always have, whether or not the world wants to accept that initially at first blush. Because the joy of being the Christian is that we do have the gospel to present, but we're the only ones that have it. So it is our job to take this to this world through our worship, in preaching, in song, even in liturgy, or in contemporary worship, if that's the way you're going to reach your area. I'm not going to take a stand on that one way or the other. But as long as we stand firm in the historic Christian faith, and historic Christian worship that flexes only enough to be relevant, we maintain who we are. We maintain ourselves as being called out. We maintain ourselves as being called to something as well as out of something. When we stand firm, we can look back across 2,000 years and go, I still believe as he did. I still go to the church that he went to. I read her works and was mesmerized by the way that she encountered God. And then we can take all of that truth and take it out to our world. But only if we stand firm and we resist compromising the firm tenets of the faith.